Hello, this is Kate from Keypunks, and currently I've been working like a dog trying to get this next game out, Scarab Shot. It's a bit of a puzzle game, maybe a little similar to Zumba, with a little bit of a breakout element. You know, you click and the ball shoots, and you have to match the ball color with the ball square, because if you get the wrong combination, ooh, you get hurt. This is a game that I'm planning on launching on web browsers. However, I wanted to work on both like mobile and desktop browsers, as well as also being a game that will have multiple control options, including GamePad. Now, this is great and all, however, there's a problem with GamePad controllers. That is, well, when you get to the results screen, if you have a virtual keyboard or a physical keyboard, you can write E with your physical keys, and yeah, it pops up. However, if you're working with a GamePad, you're going to need to be typing in with the controller. So you need to be able to go E like this. There you go. Also, you're going to need to be able to have the option to either backspace or just clear whatever you typed. And that is what we're going to be covering here today, that little tutorial of showing how to do basically GamePad keyboards. This is also pretty useful too because personally, I find that Godot, the game engine of my choice, tends to have difficulty trying to boot up the virtual keyboard options on specific devices. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's not consistently across all models of phone. So this also works as an alternative to a touchscreen keyboard as well. Same node layout, same buttons. It's going to work with a click, a tap, or pressing the A button when it's highlighted. So the Scarab Shot game has custom theming and such. However, I've set up a little tutorial project to streamline and just keep things more simple in terms of the visuals as well as the node hierarchy, which you see right over here on the left. It's also worth mentioning I personally use Godot4 still when releasing web browser games because I tend to have an easier time getting mobile browsers to run Godot3 than Godot4. However, rest assured, this tutorial is done in Godot4, but I may say some Godot3 terminology instead of some Godot4 terminology because they changed some things around, and I have not fully adapted to the Godot4 terminology. First node is your world node, okay? We're not concerned about that. What we're concerned with is making the pad keyboard, okay? This custom object. This custom object has a scroll container directly underneath it, okay? What you're going to want to do with it is, despite scroll container being, intended for scrolling, it's also really good at housing buttons. And I'll explain why in a second, but for now, just keep in mind, you want to go over to your horizontal and your vertical scroll modes and disable both of them. Sounds weird, but we'll explain why in a second. Next is going to be your color rect, which underneath is going to be all the buttons in the scene. But for the color rect specifically, what you're going to want to do is adjust the custom minimum size to whatever you're going to need for the context of what you're working in. Reason for this is sometimes the scroll container will adjust its scaling by automatically, even when there's just buttons directly underneath it. However, the minimum size of the color rect beneath the scroll container locks the size in place, okay? It's not going to have a situation where the scroll container just shrinks down to nothing when you boot up the game. Sometimes that's happened to me. So I find put the color rect underneath it, adjust the custom minimum size to what you need, and boom, you don't ever have to worry about that again. However, the reason why we're even bothering with putting all this stuff under a scroll container that's disabled, so it's like, there's no scrolling left, is the fact that any button you put within the color rect now is just going to automatically know what its neighbor is. Say you had all these buttons out here and they have no housing. Well, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to go to the focus properties, and you're going to need to assign what its top neighbor is, what its bottom neighbor is, what its right neighbor, what its left neighbor, a lot of neighbors. This is tedious work normally and incredibly frustrating work if you're planning on doing a whole keyboard. So having this automatic linking process is going to make things a lot easier. So when you boot up the game and you have the keys, just tap left, tap right, and it automatically just knows what the nearest neighbor is, and it will just grab it. All right, so we have the name, the clear button, the back button. How do we get them to operate correctly? Let's start with just the general text buttons first, okay? These are going to be their own dedicated scene objects that are instanced multiple times. Each key button is the same scene. However, they're given different names within the scene hierarchy. They're just instanced within the example scene we're working with as many times as you need to fill up the whole alphabet, and given names for their dedicated letter. While they appear as dashes within the preview, when the game actually loads the correct letters of display. The reason for this is that on all of their scripts, on the ready function, it just says the text becomes their name. This one's B, so it shall display as B. This one is F, so it shall display as F, etc. Now within Godot, there are something called signals, which you can find within highlighting the node and going to node signals. Here, when certain functions or actions are triggered within the world, are triggered within the game environment, sometimes they emit a dedicated signal, which can trigger another reaction. Signals can either be wired onto itself, like we have here with the key buttons, which is all the letters that you see here, but they can also be wired to other nodes. In the case of the back button and the clear button, their signals are wired instead of to themselves, but to this color rect parent object. If you're not familiar with signals, very, very, very essential thing to have a foundation on if you're going to be making games in Godot. Each one of these button nodes, which is just a basic Godot button node, has a dedicated press signal, okay? So I press A, and the signal is being emitted of A, and then, well, this is listening, and it's like saying, okay, what happens when A is pressed? Well, this is what's happening when A is pressed. You get parent, get node name, text equals get parent, get node name, text plus text. Let's break down what each part means here. Get parent means going up within the parenting object here, which is color rect. The next part is get node, which the string is name. So it wants me to get a node named name, which is this one right here, which is the display of whatever you're typing within the virtual keyboard. And .text is the attribute that is, well, the text that this label node is displaying. This is the label node, by the way. So when we repeat this, and then we repeat the same words again plus text, what we're doing is basically saying get player name, okay? When the button is pressed, it's getting the node, it's getting the text, it's saying player name plus the letter A. And that's what you get. Now going to the parenting color recs script here, let us look at, well, the two functions that are triggered by the clear button and the back button. As you notice, there's a less jargon to say to call upon the name node. In Godot, $ plus the name of a child node is shorthand for get node. So when the clear button signal is pressed, the signal is being emitted to color rect. What does color rect do when clear is pressed? Well, it's saying name.text shall become just blank. The variable for text is a string value, and if you just put two quotations next to one another, it's nothing. It's an empty string value. That's pretty straightforward. Now, back was the one that got me. I had to do a little bit of digging. Unfortunately, I had to use Reddit to get the answer for this one. But when back is pressed, color rect is listening. Color rect does this combination right here. You declare a custom variable within the function, so it only applies to within the function itself. If the text length of text is bigger than 0, text.name equals this, which becomes the backspace, more or less. If you need the GD scripts and the functions for everything I showed today, the description has the copy and paste from what you're seeing in this video just down there. So copy, paste, stack the notes the same way as I did it, and you'll be getting the same results. However, it's worth listening to me yap this whole time because not every single time you're going to be structuring it, it's going to be exactly this way. So you want to know the little bits and pieces. So in case if you had to stack your blocks a little bit differently than me, you're still understanding what needs to be done, and you should have a familiarity with the specific adjustments to my GD script that I'm giving you. Now, as a quick rapid fire, what are things that you might want to know relating towards this that are adjustments in terms of aesthetics? If you really don't want a visible black box around all your buttons, if you just make the alpha channel all the way crank up on the color within the color rect node, there you go, it's invisible. However, you'll still get the auto neighboring function, even though the color rect itself is not visible. Reminder, if you just toggle the color rect visibility, you're just going to see nothing. So you need to be adjusting the color. A lot of times you don't want to use the default Godot buttons. You want to stylize it and make it more unique to the game. In the case of Scarab Shot, I just use theme overrides. Each one of these are their own dedicated TRES files with their own attributes applied to it. On top of that, if you're working on Godot4, Godot4 has a dedicated font sizes slider that you can adjust here. And finally, you can use the line edit instead of label node for the section that displays your character's name. However, while in Godot 3, you're able to have this and press the down button and automatically get Godot to understand, oh, okay, down means grab focus of the bottom neighbor node. In Godot 4, you can enter the labels area. However, pressing down, I'm running into a little bit of issues right here. So be wary about that. If there's a workaround and I find about it, I'll put it as a pinned comment, but that I'm not working with Godot 4 right now. So, don't wait on me for the answer. But be wary of that because that is something that might get you. All right, hopefully this tutorial is helpful for you. If you want to support CubePunks, go to the website. Check out our games. We've made quite a few. Scarab Shot will be coming out soon. Currently, it says in open beta. There's some fine-tuning adjustments that I'm currently trying to work on before I do the proper full public release. Our website also has redirects to our social media channels, such as the Twitter. And also, it's worth mentioning, which was announced on Twitter, that if you want artwork that looks like this, I'm currently accepting art commissions. So there is a commission form. Depending on what you want, there's 2 forms for commercial and personal use. And if you want art that looks like this, I will draw it for you. You just fill out the form. I'll respond. We'll get that settled. On top of that, we also do accept donations. So if you want to give us money on a platform like Ko-Fi, or if you want to give us the PayPal, we will accept it. These videos are hopefully useful. However, with full self-awareness, I know they're a bit of a niche. So any additional support will help me be able to make more of these videos and get us to a point where this is self-sustainable. All right, that's it for this one. See ya.